Now let's take a look at this particular function here. So this n represents number, and this t represents the time. So this function models the number of people in a town who have heard a rumor, and after t days. In other words, this is kind of like modeling the spread of the rumor. Now, the first question is, as t increases without bound. What does that really mean? Without bound. Bound means a boundary. Without boundary, that means t is continuing to increase. So in other words, t is approaching infinity. And then this is to ask, hey, what does this n of t is? When does this n of t approach? When this t is, say, infinity. So basically, you just need to figure out what this value is, because you are going to say t is a huge number, right? Think of t as a huge number. What would that be? So I'm going to look at this guy. 49 times e to the negative 0.7 times t. Now think of this as a huge number, okay? Huge number, because there's really no such a number called infinity. Infinity just means approaching huge number. And just imagine, suppose this is say 10 million. 10 million is pretty big, right? Of course, when we say t is approaching infinity, it can be much larger than this one, but just to give you some idea, so we can say 10 million. So 10 million times 0.7, that means 7 million, negative 7 million. In other words, e to the negative 7 million. So now you can actually use your calculator to, by the way, what is e to the negative 7 million, which is 1 over e to the 7 million, right? 7 million. Now, e is 2.71828182846 ish. So therefore, it's a number. Say I'm gonna say, suppose t is just say, just use a number, say 2. I already know 2 to the 10 is already 1024. It's 1,000. If you 2 to the it's pretty big, right? 1 over even 2 to the 10 is one. It's like one of the 1,000 ish. Now 1 over e to the 7 million, this will be very tiny, close to 0. If you use your calculator, you see that this is really close to 0. In other words, this guy right here, this guy is close to 0. This guy is close to 0. 0 times 49, of course, is close to 0. In other words, this is close to 0, right? When t is infinity, this is close to 0. Now, what is the value n approach? So you have 500 divided by 1 plus a number that's so close to 0. Isn't that this is so close to 500, right? So this is close to 500. Therefore, this is what this nt is approaching, 500, the number in the numerator. This is always true. Whenever you see this type of function, we call it logistic function, right? So the numerator is what the value this n of t will approach. What does this specific value of n of t represent? Now, if you look at this n of t, what does n of t represent? N of t represents the number of people who have heard rumor. So n of t should be the number of people who have heard the rumor. So I will rule out the number of days it will take, right? So this will not be true. The initial number of people who heard the rumor, well, what does that really mean? The initial value, that means n of 0 when t is 0. So therefore, the initial number will be n of 0. This guy will represent the initial number. But n of t is not. N of t is this guy, okay, after t days. That's the definition. So that's my hint. Hopefully you can identify which one describes this n of t now.